customers. Visit legacyvox.com.
Oh my god, I won! Guys, I just saw someone win an iPad for under $10.
I got this amazing Japanese knife set for just 75 cents.
I got this KitchenAid stand mixer for only $56.
There's millions of fast auctions and always something to win on DealDash.com. And today, new users get a $50 bonus credit. Go to DealDash.com right now and see how much you'll save.
And shipping is always free.
When your dog's superhero moment goes sideways. Pumpkin Now, the urgent pay service from Pumpkin Pet Insurance, can pay you for eligible care before you pay the vet. Ask your vet about Pumpkin or visit pumpkin.care to get a free quote.
This is CNN.
The Donald Trump administration, it's posted this video of what it calls Nicolas Maduro's perp walk. You see it here. It shows the ousted Venezuelan president being escorted in handcuffs inside the Drug Enforcement Administration office here in New York City. Maduro was processed and fingerprinted there. The video shows him saying good night and Happy New Year to some people in that room, in that hallway. And with Nicolas Maduro now in U.S. custody, he will be facing several major criminal charges, some of them including conspiracy to commit narcoterrorism and cocaine importation conspiracy. He will also face weapons charges, including conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices against the United States. And the indictment against Maduro is part of a long-running drug trafficking case that the U.S. has pursued for 15 years now. Joining me to discuss the legal ramifications from Los Angeles is Jessica Levinson. She's a law professor at Loyola Law School and host of the Passing Judgment podcast. It's great to have you with us, Jessica.
Great to be here.
So, what stands out to you about the administration's plan to prosecute Maduro and his wife? Have you had a chance to go through the indictment? What stands out to you?
I have. Well, I think the initial question is whether or not the case will move forward. Of course, we're dealing with both international law and domestic law when we're thinking about this case. And I think there are serious questions with respect to international law as to whether or not the president of Venezuela was brought here legally. And I think one of his big defenses in a U.S. court will be that Venezuela's sovereignty was in fact violated and that he enjoys something called head of state immunity. He might also actually rely on one of our Supreme Court decisions dealing with presidents having absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts. So the first thing that stands out is that I think he's going to have a vigorous defense in saying, I shouldn't be here and you shouldn't be able to prosecute me and you violated my country's sovereignty. And then I think we need to look at how the case could proceed in U.S. courts if the prosecutors are able to overcome those initial questions.
And that argument, I'm wondering how that could play out. Again, right now we're just sort of, this is a hypothesis in terms of what we could expect here. I mean, how would it stand in the face of the Trump administration's claim that this was a law enforcement operation that was carried out, specifically targeting somebody that was indicted by the Department of Justice?
So I think the Trump administration is going to argue that they do have this extraterritorial ability to extract the president of Venezuela and bring him to the United States for a criminal case. That is largely untested, and the question is whether or not that is a successful strategy. Again, I think that the district court who gets this case is going to be looking at very little precedent. Now, the United States, in some Office of Legal Counsel memorandums by then Attorney Bill Barr, later he became the U.S. Attorney, had essentially argued that the president does have authority under the Constitution to send in FBI agents in a situation like this, even if it does violate international law. But we don't have a U.S. Supreme Court case on this point.
I remember covering Joaquin Chapo Guzman's case, which took just months to adjudicate here in New York. When you compare that drug trafficking case to this one against Nicolas Maduro, and to your earlier point, we're not even sure it will actually go to trial, but generally, how long does a case like this take to go through the system, to play out?
This is a great question. I wish I had a specific answer. I think a lot of people would say, oh, years, it'll certainly be years. But the truth is, we don't know because because we don't know if the case will be thrown out relatively early in the proceedings. So if a judge finds and if appellate courts conclude that in fact the president of Venezuela is immune from prosecution, that even though he is standing in a U.S. courtroom, that he can't be tried for these particular claims, then this could be a fairly quick, I'm not going to say weeks, certainly this is not weeks, but it could be fairly quick. If this case moves past those initial questions, then I do think we're talking about years, because I think a lot of these really big questions will bounce up and down the federal court system as the case continues to move forward.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to just the discovery process alone playing out, calling up witnesses, etc. We have a long way to go before we get there. Jessica Levinson, as always, appreciate your legal expertise on this case. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more of your breaking news. Stay with CNN.
Entertaining is easy when every room has a view. Enter for your chance to win HGTV Dream Home 2026. Brought to you by Wayfair. Every style, every home.
The winter blue sale is now on. Visit sandals.com today.
We're giving away over $12 million.
We gotta get this money.
We came here with the dream of starting a family.
This opportunity could change our lives.
It does not get any bigger than this.
The Wall. Check your local listings. Every 15 seconds, someone will hear the words, "You have cancer." At the American Cancer Society, we're here to help people through their entire journey. And today, we're asking for your support. Your gift helps fund important research that saves lives.
I owe it all to the American Cancer Society.
We can't do this without you. Go online or scan the QR code now to donate today. Skull Shaver, the gold standard in shaving. Comes with 45 days money-back guarantee. Shave that earns real loyalty. 180,000 plus 5-star reviews. Shop now at Skull Shaver.
Jorge has always put the ones he loves first. But when it comes to caring for his teeth, he's let his own maintenance take a back seat. Well, maybe it's time to shift gears on that. Aspen Dental has complete, affordable care all under one roof. Plus, free exams and x-rays for new patients without insurance, and 20% off dental services for everyone. Making it easier to get started with quality care. It's one more way Aspen Dental is in your corner.
The NHL on TNT. The excitement of the new season is over. Now you're into the grind. The grind part of the season, that's when the real work starts. A little banged up, you're sore.
Schedule's been grueling.
You played a lot of games, we still have a lot of games left to go. You gotta bear down. Every game matters. Good work, man. Stay with it. Stay with it. I think it's just an important part of the season. You want to set the tone now. They're almost around the corner to playoff time. That's what keeps you going.
Great time of year.
Right here on TNT.
What would you pay for an iPad Pro? I only paid $42 on DealDash.
DealDash.com. Online auction since 2009. This PlayStation 5 sold for only 50 cents. And this smart charcoal grill sold for $16. And this Nintendo Switch sold for less than $20. Deals like these and many more happen in the thousands of daily auctions on DealDash.com. All auctions start at $0. And remember, everything must go.
I got this KitchenAid stand mixer for only $56.
I got this barbecue smoker for 26 bucks.
And you get a 90-day money-back guarantee with your first purchase.
This brand new iPhone sold for less than $42. And this DJI drone sold for less than $21.
I got it for 16 bucks on DealDash.
And shipping is always free.
Go to DealDash.com right now and see how much you can save.
There are auctions going on right now. So what are you waiting for?
Death Cab, The Mushroom Murders, now streaming on the CNN app.
Welcome back. Reaction among world leaders to President Trump's military action in Venezuela. It has been swift and varied. Meanwhile, some Venezuelans living abroad have celebrated today's operation. Here's a look. World leaders are swiftly reacting to the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer making it clear the UK had no part in it.
I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law.
But there is outrage among many Latin American leaders. Brazilian President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva said the U.S. attack, quote, crossed an unacceptable line and was a serious affront to Venezuela's sovereignty. Condemnation also coming from the leaders of Colombia, Chile, Cuba, and Mexico. But Argentina's president, a Trump ally, appearing to welcome the capture of the Venezuelan leader, posting on social media that freedom advances. But the developments are being closely tracked around the world.
In today's times, such massive events as today's attacks by American forces have an impact on the entire world. So we shall be responding and preparing ourselves for this new situation.
Russia, close ally of Venezuela, called the U.S. strikes an act of armed aggression. And China, whose envoy had met with Maduro just hours before his capture, says the U.S. violated international law. But apart from this sharp diplomatic fallout, reaction in many places where Venezuelans are living abroad has been jubilant. In Madrid, which is one of the largest populations of Venezuelan expats outside of Latin America and the U.S., many people waved Venezuelan flags and cheered Maduro's downfall. And in Florida, some people expressing relief that Maduro was in U.S. custody, saying it may make it possible for them to return home one day.
My reaction is I'm so happy because now Venezuela is free.
Venezuelans in South Florida, they are celebrating news of Nicolas Maduro's capture. These images coming from Doral, Florida, home to many Venezuelan immigrants, more than any other single place in the U.S. Many of them are hoping that the Trump administration's actions will spark the change in Venezuela that they have been waiting decades to see for themselves. Joining me now from New York City is Yurka Melendez. She's the co-founder of Venezuelans and Immigrants Aid, a group here in New York that helps Venezuelan asylum seekers. Yurka, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you, Paulo, for the invitation and for having me.
So, Yurka, is there any sense that Maduro may be gone, but these traces of his regime, that they remain back in Caracas?
Oh yes, I mean what happened today is just we are seeing justice that is happening now with Maduro, but we know there is still the Chavez system still remaining in our country. So we are hoping that for those who are still in the country trying to keep in power have the same future that the justice found in Maduro.
I want to show our viewers around the world some of these remarkable pictures of the White House's release where we see Maduro on U.S. soil in handcuffs. He's flanked by DEA agents. We're seeing him right now, and I'm sure you've had a chance to see some of these images. When you did see them, as somebody who is living essentially in exile in the United States and not able to return home, what went through your mind when you saw Maduro like this?
It's like a roller coaster. It's many emotions at the same time. There is still persecution, there is still political prisoners. In my country, there is still people feeling fears. There is still not the possibility for us to going back to our country, but yet it's at least a light at the end of the tunnel that gives us the hope. And what I really see behind that picture is the justice that we are, in need of seeing to start or build again our country. So that was my first reaction, that justice that I feel is coming and is getting closer to us as a Venezuelan people outside our country.
President Trump said on Saturday that the U.S. will, as he put it, will run Venezuela until a safe transition can happen. Given the U.S.'s troubled history of intervention, how much confidence do you have in the U.S.'s ability to get your country back on course? We heard from a former ambassador say that doing that, it would be a complicated task. I think that's an understatement.
Yes, It is a complicated even topic for me to digest because it's too many political matters in between. What I see beyond that is the humanity behind this. It's just human beings, aiming for freedom, and that is what I see right now. Just hoping that the representation for our political people might be, the best fit in order to Venezuelans be the ones who can just decide the future of our country. But now, what I see even in that scenario is just the help that we were seeking and hoping that everything is just getting into place, back into place. Our country is in a mess. We lost our country, and now getting pieces into place, I know it's gonna be a really complicated task. And again, for us, it's just the beginning, probably the beginning of the end, or the end of that beginning that we saw almost 3 decades back in our history. And I don't feel like creating expectations and guessing the future, but what we see is the fact, and I'm hoping that is gonna result in a better future for everything. Starting for rebuilding again a country that we lived almost 3 decades.
Mirka, as you and nearly 8 million of your fellow Venezuelans who have left home in the last decade observe closely what will happen next, I'm curious, I wonder if we can close with what your vision is of what you see as the future of your country.
It's almost 3 decades, as I said before. It's not an easy solution, like a right away. I know this will take a lot, even in our mind, as a civil society, to escape, get rid of our own fears. It's gonna be a really complicated task, and as you can tell now, it's too many pieces that we have to put again together. We have to remind us, as a civil society, what is to have again independent institution, starting from that, and then as a citizens of Venezuela, to regain that confidence that we don't need to rely on waiting for a regime to decide what is going to be next for us, but decide for ourselves about our own future. You see, it's many things that we have to digest again as a civil society, as a citizen of our country, starting for okay, we have again a country, let's build it together. So it's so many tasks, it's quite complicated for me because there are many emotions coming to my mind, but even having the hope that you can go back to your country, even for visiting, as I said to you in a private conversation before, it's just wow, like a light and a human right that we even forget what is that feeling. So, it's digesting all these things again, and we have hope. Absolutely. That is the thing that first came to my mind regarding all the events that happening in such a short time, and that is hope, and of course, they commit as a citizen to be a part of this such a, task that we have in front of us.
Thank you so much for continuing to share your story. Together, watch to see what the next chapter will bring for your country. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you, Polo. Thank you for the invitation.
And we have much more breaking news coverage ahead following the U.S. capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Coming up, the latest anti-war protests, Caribbean flight challenges, and also growing uncertainty, as you just heard, back in Venezuela.
Let me back up for a minute. Wow.
Oh my God.
Look at this. Oh my God, look at that. That's good, man. Let me back up for a minute.
That is so good.
you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it.
If you're happy and you know it's all big and bright.
Thousands of kids just like me are happy every day.
And it's all because of generous people like you who support Shriners Hospitals for Children every month.
All you have to do is call the number on your screen or go online to loveshriners.org right now with your monthly gift.
Because of people like you, Shriners Hospitals for Children is able to make an everyday miracle happen for kids like me. If you're happy and you know it, dance around. If you're happy and you know it when it's on.
If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it.
If you're happy and you know it, take a shot.
And when you call or go online right now to donate $19 a month or more, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a thank you and a reminder of all the smiles you're bringing to kids' faces every day.
Will today be the day you send your love to the rescue?
When you call the number on your screen right now and give as little as $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you'll be making a life-changing difference for a child, just like Sarah.
Your monthly gift today could change your life forever.
Because of you.
We are happy and we know it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please call or go online right now to give. If operators are busy, please wait patiently or go to loveshriners.org right away.
How's everybody feeling tonight?
Is This Thing On is one of the best films of the year. Starring Will Arnett, Laura Dern, Andrew Day, and Bradley Cooper.
Oh, come on. I thought this was a comedy.
Is This Thing On rated R? Life? Diabetes. There's no slowing down. Each day is a unique blend of people to see and things to do. That's why you choose Glucerna to help manage blood sugar response. Uniquely designed with Carb Steady. Glucerna. Bring on the day.
The NHL on TNT. The excitement of the new season is over. Now you're into the grind.
The grind part of the season,
That's when the real work starts. A little banged up, you're sore.
schedule's been grueling.
You played a lot of games, we still have a lot of games left to go. You gotta bear down. Every game matters.
Stay with it, stay with it.
I think it's such an important part of the season. You want to set the tone now. You're almost around the corner to playoff time. That's what keeps you going.
It's a great time of year. Right here on TNT.
Closed captioning brought to you by InventHelp. Call 1-800-710-0020.
Do you have an invention idea but don't know what to do next? Call InventHelp today. They can help you get started with your idea.
Call now. 800-710-0020.
These are some of the sights and sounds of some passionate protests on the doorstep of the White House earlier on Saturday as Americans voiced their frustration with the prospect of a war and bloodshed over oil. Also in New York, more demonstrators carrying the message, "No war on Venezuela." They were on the streets just hours after President Trump announced the capture of Nicolas Maduro and his wife. Other protests, they have been reported in cities including Boston, Minneapolis, and Atlanta. And with those pictures, we want to thank you so much for joining us the last hour of news. I'm Polo Sandoval live in New York. I'll join you right back after a short break as our breaking news coverage continues here on CNN.
Have you ever felt so sluggish that it was like you were stuck in your chair? Like you didn't feel energetic enough for even routine activity? I've been there. As a doctor, I knew this could be a sign that my digestive system wasn't working at its best. So I followed the same advice I give my patients and started taking Metamucil fiber every day.
Metamucil is the only leading brand with plant-based psyllium fiber that gels to help trap and remove waste, so you can feel lighter in as little as 14 days.
After trying it for 2 weeks, I decided to keep taking Metamucil every day to help meet my health goals.
Metamucil psyllium fiber also helps curb cravings between meals, helps lower cholesterol to support heart health, and helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels. That's why Metamucil is the #1 fiber brand recommended by doctors, pharmacists,
And gastroenterologists like me.
Metamucil. Digestive health starts here. Scan to shop or visit these fine retailers today.
For 40 years, I'd been burying my emotions and all the trauma.
I was grasping desperately for independence and hope. I found it with a tail and a cold nose.
time we're out in the public, he has my back.
Every time those demons start talking, he knows, and he's right there at my side. The Mustang truly did save my life.
The Winter Blue sale is now on. Visit sandals.com today.
Life, diabetes, there's no slowing down. Each day is a unique blend of people to see and things to do. That's why you choose Glucerna to help manage blood sugar response. Uniquely designed with Carb Steady. Glucerna, bring on the day.
AI can turn your lights on.
Lights on.
And drive your car. And even write your kid's essay. But AI ain't gonna fix your broken water line or pay for the big repair bill. Having a plan from HomeServe offers real solutions, and when a covered system breaks, we'll send a qualified contractor and pay for the repair. There's nothing artificial about the peace of mind you get with a plan from HomeServe. Getting one is quite intelligent.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $4.99 a month.
Call 1-866-904-0830 or visit HomeServe.com.
Some men, they mask their problems. But a man who gets the job done right. Man who works a full shift and others clock out at noon. They clock out soccer. They take what they're due. Man who stops bacteria and free in your mix.
I'm Ben Wiedemann in Rome, and this is CNN.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Hey everybody, I'm Paulo Sandoval joining you live from New York, and this is CNN Newsroom. We want to continue with our breaking news at this hour. President Donald Trump says that the U.S. will run Venezuela, and this after capturing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. Maduro arrived here in New York City on Saturday and is now at the Metropolitan Detention Center. He's set to face drug and weapons charges in New York in the coming days. President Trump telling reporters that the U.S. military could have killed the leader during its large-scale operation Saturday.
He was trying to get into a safe place. You know, the safe place is all steel. And he wasn't able to make it to the door because our guys were so fast. They went through the opposition so fast. There was a lot of gunfire. You saw some of it today. But he was trying to get to a safe place, which wasn't safe because we would have had the door blown up in about 47 seconds, they say on average, regardless of how thick the steel was. And it was a very thick door. It was a very heavy door, but he was unable to get to that door. He made it to the door. He was unable to close it.
And that operation was taking place just 24 hours ago. The White House releasing these photos showing President Trump and members of his national security team who were watching the operation play out. He says that the U.S. will take control of Venezuela's massive oil reserves and could put U.S. troops on the ground to help secure said oil. Venezuela's Supreme Court ordered Vice President Delcy Rodriguez to assume the duties of acting president after Maduro was captured. She's calling on the U.S. to release Maduro and his wife.
We demand the immediate release of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, the only president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
And President Trump has said at a news conference that Secretary of State Marco Rubio actually spoke to her, that spoke to Rodriguez, and added that she said, quote, "We're going to do whatever you need." So some conflicting messaging there. I want to go down to CNN's Evan Perez, who filed this report from outside the detention center where Maduro is being held at this hour.
Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia are now in the Metropolitan Detention Center here in Brooklyn, capping an extraordinary 20 hours or so after they were snatched from their bedroom in Caracas. They were transported to a U.S. military ship off the coast of Venezuela, the Iwo Jima, and then to Guantanamo Bay, where they were put on a plane to New York. Now, that began the process while they were under arrest to face 4 sets of charges from the Justice Department. Those include narco-terrorism and cocaine importation conspiracy. A number of other Venezuelan officials are also named in this indictment that was unsealed by the Justice Department earlier on Saturday. Now, this begins an extraordinary process for the U.S. government. They have the former Venezuelan leader here now in Brooklyn, and it'll probably be a few months of court battles over the legitimacy of these charges. Now, earlier today, there were hundreds of people from the Venezuelan community who turned up outside the Metropolitan Detention Center to cheer on the arrest of the former Venezuelan leader. Even late into the evening, there were several dozen that remained outside the facility. Depending on where Maduro is being held, he might actually be able to hear some of those cheers. Now, we expect that Maduro will next appear in public in federal court in Manhattan to face these charges as soon as Monday. Evan Paris, Brooklyn, New York.
Let's continue our coverage now with CNN's Kevin Liptak, who's got more from Palm Beach, Florida.
President Trump's order for U.S. forces to capture Nicolas Maduro was the culmination of a months-long pressure campaign on Venezuela and is really one of the most consequential moments of either of his two presidencies. Now, when we were over at Mar-a-Lago on Saturday for the president's press conference, it was striking how much detail was revealed about what went into the planning for this operation. You know, months and months of CIA work on the ground in Caracas to track Maduro's locations, to track his rhythms, to ensure that this raid went off seamlessly, sort of a minute-by-minute accounting of the raid as it was happening on the ground there in Venezuela, and then a description of how the forces found Maduro in his home and captured him as he was fleeing to his safe room. So a lot of details there. What we did not hear much from the president on is what he envisions happening next. When he says that the U.S. will, quote, run Venezuela going forward, the president offering not a lot of detail about what precisely he has in mind for what amounts to a temporary protectorate in a country of 30 million people. That's 1.5 times the size of Texas, and where the U.S. has no official presence. The U.S. hasn't had an open embassy in Venezuela since 2019. The president was pressed again and again by reporters about what exactly he was envisioning happening on the ground there. Listen to what he said.
Well, you know, they always say boots on the ground. Oh, so we're not afraid of boots on the ground that we have to have. We had boots on the ground last night at a very high level, actually. We're not afraid of it. We don't mind saying it.
President, will you explain the mechanism by which you're going to run the country? Are you going to designate a U.S. official to coordinate?
It's all being done right now. We're designating people. We're talking to people. We're designating various people. It's largely going to be for a period of time. The people that are standing right behind me. We're going to be running it. We're going to be bringing it back.
No, I also pressed the president about what he thinks about a prolonged American military presence on the ground in Venezuela, and he didn't answer that explicitly. He said he wasn't afraid of boots on the ground, but when I asked whether that meant sort of a prolonged presence for U.S. forces, he pivoted almost immediately to discussing Venezuela's oil. You know, that has been a preoccupation of the president's for quite some time. Venezuela, of course, sitting on the world's largest proven oil reserves. And so I think, taken all together, certainly a dramatic day, a successful raid militarily by the U.S., but one that raises a whole host of questions that the president didn't necessarily have answers for, at least on Saturday. Kevin Liptak, CNN, West Palm Beach, Florida.
Let's go now to CNN Senior National Security Analyst Juliet Kayyem. Juliet, thank you so much for taking some time to join us after what's been just an incredible 24 hours. I know you've been following it closely.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, it's our pleasure. So the Trump administration seems to frame this detention of a head of state on foreign soil as a law enforcement operation targeting an indicted individual. In your opinion, do you think that gave the administration more room to operate? Or do you think that the operation may have been on shaky legal ground?
So I think that we need to, at least now, 20 hours later, sort of separate the precision of the capture, which I think was precise, was successful with what we're now seeing, which is, I think, the vagaries of the justification or any plans on day two. We've spent, as you're reporting and the lead up of our reporters just show, a lot of time trying to assess what was the purpose of this capture, because the president went from everything from leadership change to regime change to oil to this law enforcement effort that you discussed. On the legal front, of course, there is an indictment against Maduro. The indictment does not discuss the things that President Trump seems to be focused on, which is, of course, fentanyl. But most legal analysts in international law are sort of unanimous in saying that this is not justified under international law, that the mere disagreement with a foreign leader does not justify this kind of arrest and, of course, capture, of which the Venezuelans are calling essentially an abduction or hostage taking.
And in listening to President Trump on Saturday afternoon, Julia, it didn't seem that there was a real plan in place. I thought that there was really some substance that was missing there. So considering that, what questions would you pose to the Trump administration about just how it went about in detaining Maduro and what it sees as Venezuela's future?
Yeah, and I think that's just an important distinction. We tend to get focused, at least in the news, on the sort of power and shock and awe of the military action. You can't applaud that and say that was a good capture, but then question what now. I think the president was exceptionally confusing. I'll just be honest with you. If you're a Venezuelan, let alone a foreign country, let alone Americans, it was completely unclear what was the imminent threat and what is the plan on Sunday. Is it just leadership change, which seems to be the case right now? You have the basic contours of the same leadership still in place. Is it about regime change? Well, Trump hinted at that when he said that the United States would be in control of Venezuela, something that didn't make a lot of sense given that the Defense Department had said that they basically exited. Or is it about something different? Democracy, possibly oil, definitely. The president said that. That hodgepodge of explanations is confusing. It suggests there was no imminent reason for doing this. But most importantly, it shows that the president never really made the case to the American public, let alone the international community. I think that's probably why tonight he's already distracted, if you follow his feed, from the efforts in Venezuela and back to domestic politics and antagonizing his political opponents rather than a focus on what happens on Sunday.
Yeah, it didn't make the case to not just the public, but to Congress as well, as we continue to see that course of critics, especially among Democrats that are calling on the administration to really explain not just what led up to the operation, but to your earlier point, what its plan is long term. So let's just finally just talk broader about what we can expect in the region. I mean, what kind of instability could we maybe see in Venezuela and beyond?
I put it into 4 different buckets. I think there's the short term, which is going to be sort of the travel issues that you're seeing, travel restrictions for Americans and others. That's not new. It's just something that Americans should be aware of. I think the second is just sort of continuity of operations. The question of who is in charge also goes to who is in charge of ensuring that Venezuelans' lives are not disrupted by this, or continuity of operations continuing. I think I worry less a little bit about geopolitical stability at this stage because we simply don't know what's going to happen. But if things go bad in Venezuela, you could get migration and other pressures on surrounding countries, which would then destabilize not only South America, but of course Central America and then Mexico and the United States. I finally think that we need to really look at supply chain issues as regards oil and other commodities that are transported. I work a lot in the business community. They're certainly focused on that. So as I'm looking at the sort of politics of what's happening in Venezuela, what promises or confusion is emanating out of the White House right now, you're also looking at a geopolitical structure that is as confused, and looking at the risk variables that might impact them in the days and weeks to come.
Julia Kayan, as always, we are grateful for your perspective, and especially grateful that you could stay up late for us tonight. Thank you. Military aircraft flying low to avoid detection while intelligence agencies kept a close eye on the target. Still ahead, the U.S. military explains how it pulled off this operation to capture Maduro, a successful one at that.
Want to hear something?
That's a great quote.
You steal stuff?
You nailed it, dude.
Actors on Actors, now streaming on the CNN app.
We're giving away over $12 million.
We gotta get this money.
We came here with the dream of starting a family.
This opportunity could change our lives.
It does not get any bigger than this.
The Wall. Check your local listings.
This little light of mine has been dark for quite some time. Then I let in the light to help see more of the light inside of me.
I needed more from my antidepressant, so my doctor added Caplyta, proven to provide greater relief from depression symptoms than an antidepressant alone. Building on my progress without starting over, weight gain and reported sexual side effects were not common.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Caplyta is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about new or sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks. Report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High cholesterol and weight gain may occur, as can high blood sugar, which may be fatal. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, dry mouth, feeling tired, and diarrhea. These aren't all the side effects.
Ask your doctor about Caplyta.
Life, diabetes, there's no slowing down. Each day is a unique blend of people to see and things to do. That's why you choose Glucerna to help manage blood sugar response. Uniquely designed with Carb Steady. Glucerna, bring on the day.
The finest luxury fragrances are now exclusively available on every single wash. The Unstoppables Unlimited collection. Add it to your wash and everything will smell divine. Luxury laundry scent feed so you can smell just a pop.
My name is Marie, and I am a young woman with cancer. I was unfortunately diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer.
1 in 3 people in the U.S. will get that devastating diagnosis. But your monthly gift today helps fund the cancer research that saves people's lives.
It's a huge community of people who are undergoing really scary things.
Help turn fear into hope with your support. Donate today.
Learn more about Celebrity Cruises' latest offers.
Nobody's going to make me put on an act for television.
She gets the last word.
It's a kill or be killed mentality. If you're not going to do something bold, why be here? Giuliani becomes the story of rise and fall.
There was a pressure in your Kennedy.
Martha fell fast and hard.
It's one of the most remarkable stories in sports history.
Do you envision the U.S. military having a presence in Venezuela as the U.S. runs that?
Well, no, we're going to have presence in Venezuela as it pertains to oil because we have to have, we're sending our expertise in. So you may need something, not very much. But no, we're going to be taking out a tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground. And that wealth is going to the people of Venezuela and people from outside of Venezuela that used to be in Venezuela. And it goes also to the United States of America in the form of reimbursement for the damages caused us by that country.
That was the president on Saturday afternoon, just hours after the U.S. military imposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Donald Trump was laying out his plans for that country's vast oil reserves. Well, he says that his administration will be partnering with U.S. energy companies to take control of Venezuela's oil infrastructure. It estimated that Venezuela is sitting on 1/5 of the world's reserve of crude oil, and unlocking it would massively benefit U.S. industries. Donald Trump also claims that the U.S. is owed some of its wealth. And the operation to capture President Maduro, it took just hours to execute, but months to organize. And that's from U.S. military officials who released more information about Operation Absolute Resolve on Saturday.
It involved more than 150 aircraft launching across the Western Hemisphere in close coordination, all coming together in time and place to layer effects for a single purpose: to get an interdiction force into downtown Caracas after months of work by our intelligence teammates to find Maduro and understand how he moved, where he lived, where he traveled, what he ate, what he wore, what were his pets. In early December, our force was set pending a series of aligned events.
Officials say that some of the aircraft they flew at an altitude of just 100 feet on their way to their targets. While sources say that U.S. troops did take some fire and a handful of them were injured, but none of those injuries were life-threatening. President Trump says that the U.S. was able to shut off lights in Caracas during the mission without disclosing how. And now that Maduro is gone, at least in custody, some of his paramilitary groups, they are showing that they are not out of the picture. On Saturday, a CNN crew saw these civilians armed with assault rifles who belong to a pro-government armed group. They control certain parts of Caracas and play a major role in keeping Maduro in power before his capture. They often function as law enforcement in some of the more impoverished areas in Venezuela, but the opposition calls them organized crime. They exist even though Venezuela's law bans anyone other than police and military from carrying weapons. Let's head over now to Brisbane, Australia, where we're joined now by Nick Ryan for more. He's a retired Major General of the Australian Army and author of The War for Ukraine, Strategy and Adaptation Under Fire. It is good to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So what is there to be said about the scale of Operation Resolve? I mean, there's no question about how successful it was. The forces even took some fire, but they were able to reach their targets and made it out safely.
Yeah, this was obviously an exquisitely planned, rehearsed and executed operation, the kind of thing the US military does better than anyone else on the face of the earth. Clearly there are a lot of other subordinate operations, not just taking down the power grid, but taking out communications grids. These would all be related to the air defence and other systems that might have interfered with this raid. So whilst the focus was seizing the president of Venezuela, there would have been a lot of subordinate objectives to make sure US forces could do that safely and get out safely.
Let's talk about the large-scale military presence that has been off the coast of Venezuela really since this fall. Do you expect that to remain in position in the Caribbean now that Maduro's been removed, or do you expect maybe a scale down of their assets?
Well, I'd expect the US military to leave it there for the time being, where Trump administration is clearly keen to have the Venezuelan government that remains to work with them, and one of the ways to ensure that happens is retaining this large military presence offshore, saying, listen, we'd rather use a carrot, but we still have to stick there if we need to. Also, the Trump administration has referred to potential other targets in the Caribbean and Central America, so that presence there will be used to shape the behaviour of those potential targets.
Not only that, but he's also not ruling out the possible deployment of troops on the ground, as we heard from the president on Saturday. And because of that, I'm curious from your perspective, I mean, what are right now military officials in the region at least planning for or on the lookout for when it comes to some of these pro-Maduro factions that are still, as you just saw in some of the footage, still armed and essentially still on patrol?
Well, we have long experience over the last 25 years of taking down regimes and then finding they have lots of supporters that also have to be dealt with. That will be the case in Venezuela, whether they're drug gangs or military forces that are associated with drug gangs. They will have to be dealt with one way or the other for the Americans to achieve their objectives in Venezuela, particularly when it comes to securing the sites of oil refineries and other areas that might be the target of investment by American oil companies.
I was also, just as we were hearing from the president, from military officials on Saturday, I was also really struck by how they described the intelligence that went into all of this. I think now, as you and I speak, it's easier to put everything together given what they've released. And we remember that it was just months ago that the president had given the CIA the green light to initiate some of those covert options inside of Venezuela. Do you believe that that was perhaps really essentially the beginning of the end of Maduro's presence in Venezuela?
These kind of intelligence operations by civil agencies as well as military agencies are going on 24/7 around the world. They're extraordinarily important in providing the foundation for the kinds of exquisite military raids we saw in the last 48 hours. They're kept secret for good reason, but they're constantly going on. They're collecting information, they're analysing it, so when it's required at the right time and place, it can be applied. That's what we've seen in this operation. And the stories we've seen about CIA operatives on the ground really are not anything new. This is standard practice for many intelligence agencies.
And in your view, as you said, those roughly 15,000 service members off the coast of Venezuela likely not going anywhere. Do you see a scenario where they could potentially be sent in to offer some security to energy interests in the region?
Yeah, it's very likely that there'll be some kind of force there ready to do that. If the president has said we may put boots on the ground, it's almost certain that the US military has multiple contingency plans for that already in existence. And it's likely there are forward deployed troops who can be the tip of the spear if that kind of force is required. It's unclear whether that will happen at the moment, but it's almost certain the US military has contingency plans for that.
Retired Major General Meg Ryan of Australia, thank you so much for that military perspective. Certainly helps us better understand that extraordinary operation just 24 hours ago.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
Instead of coming here on CNN Newsroom, President Trump's approval ratings, they were already at historic lows when he launched the operation to capture Nicolas Maduro. Well, look at what it could mean for his political fortunes ahead.
I'm just trying to figure you out.
It's not going to be easy. Chevy Chase is exciting in television. He had massive movie star hits. And then he went downhill from there. It was a mistake to leave SNL.
Chevy has a deep heart.
Hi, Hueys. I don't think a lot of people have the happiness I have. I'm who I am, and I like who I am.
I'm Chevy Chase, and Year 9, now streaming on the CNN app.
I like things personalized, like my coffee. So when my doctor prescribed Vyvgart Hytrulo self-injection for my generalized myasthenia gravis, we personalized my treatment goals. Vyvgart Hytrulo can improve daily abilities and reduce muscle weakness.
It's my treatment, my way.
Vyvgart Hytrulo for Weekend Away Steve.
It's travel ready and can go where I go.
Self-injection fits my plans.
Do not use Vyvgart Hytrulo if you're allergic to its ingredients. It may increase infection risk and cause serious allergic or infusion or injection-related reactions. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, fever, recent or planned vaccinations, allergy history, or kidney problems. Most common side effects include respiratory and urinary tract infections, headache, and injection site reactions.
My Vyvgart Hytrulo self-injection.
Reducing my symptoms.
That's treatment? My way. Ask your neurologist about Vyvgart Hytrulo.
Hey, man. I just want to say, I'm proud of you. Why? Because I'm getting separated from my wife? I'm confused. Confused is good. Is this thing on? Rated R.
Winter Blue sale is now on. Visit sandals.com today.
These dishes just aren't getting clean.
The problem isn't your machine. It's likely your detergent. I recommend switching to Cascade Platinum Plus. These new pods dissolve completely and have Dawn, breaking down up to 100% of tough stuck-on foods. Cascade Platinum Plus.
AI can turn your lights on.
Lights on.
and drive your car, and even write your kid's essay. But AI ain't gonna fix your broken water line or pay for the big repair bill. Having a plan from HomeServe offers real solutions, and when a covered system breaks, we'll send a qualified contractor and pay for the repair. There's nothing artificial about the peace of mind you get with a plan from HomeServe. Getting one is quite intelligent.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $4.99 a month.
Call 1-877-790-7886 or visit HomeServe.com.
Some men, they mask their problems, but a man who wins gets the job done right.
Have I got news for you? New season premieres January 24th on CNN and next day on the CNN app.
Welcome back to CNN's breaking news coverage. Just hours after Nicolas Maduro was transported to the United States, the Trump administration has posted this video of what it calls Nicolas Maduro's perp walk. You see the ousted Venezuelan president being escorted, his hands in handcuffs, inside the Drug Enforcement Office here in New York City. And Maduro was processed and fingerprinted there. He wishes some of the people in the room Happy New Year, as you see in the footage. And in the wake of Saturday's American military operation to capture Nicolas Maduro, congressional leaders there are calling for a briefing on the operation. House Armed Services Committee aide telling CNN that the panel is in the process of planning a briefing for next week, possibly. The operation has received praise from some Republicans and near universal condemnation from some Democrats.
It is an important day for the American people. It is a crucial day for the entire hemisphere. And it is the one thing that all of us have all been saying. We've all been saying, and you've heard me say this time and time again, that the solution, the real solution for the Venezuelan people was total, absolute democracy and freedom returning to Venezuela. And because of President Trump and the United States Armed Forces, that day has already begun.
Blood for oil. I've been saying it for weeks. This is blood for oil. It's got nothing to do with narco trafficking. The drugs are mostly going to Europe, and cocaine is not the drug that is killing Americans. That's fentanyl coming from China. This has always been about the fact that Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves, 300 billion barrels offshore. Chevron has the contract and the Treasury Department's permission to exploit those oil reserves. And this president is making good on his campaign promise to the U.S. oil majors, where he told them that if they gave him $1 billion, he would hook them up. Well, he's hooking them up.
Joining us now with more on the political impacts of Maduro's capture is CNN senior political analyst and Bloomberg opinion columnist Ron Brownstein, who joins us from Los Angeles. Thank you so much for staying up late for us, Ron. Great to see you.
Good evening.
So, as you just saw, some of the response from both sides of the aisle, and it's not just from some of the Democratic members of the House caucus, but let me just put up what what Marjorie Taylor Greene has posted recently in response to this. The congressman writing, if U.S. military action and regime change in Venezuela was really about saving American lives from deadly drugs, then why hasn't the Trump administration taken action against Mexican cartels? And of course, the post goes on there. What is your opinion, though, on American sentiment right now when it comes to what we just witnessed 24 hours ago? Do you think that the American public, that American voters in a midterm year want to see the U.S. run another country, even if it's temporary?
Yeah, well, the polling on this was pretty consistent beforehand. 60 to 70% of Americans were saying in polls that they opposed military action in Venezuela. Now, I suspect that once the action has already happened, that number will diminish somewhat, and you'll get somewhat more support for it, but I would be very surprised if it was anything more than 50-50 at best. And if you kind of look a little over the horizon, I think, as you see in the Marjorie Taylor Greene statement, I gives you a good indication of why I believe the downside risk of this over time politically is much higher than the possible upside gain. I mean, if it all goes well, what the president will achieve is something that I don't think is going to matter much to a lot of Americans, which is greater access to Venezuelan oil for American oil and multinational oil companies. If it goes badly and you are involved in a sustained military action, much less kind of urban guerrilla resistance in a country that most Americans did not think was worthy of military action, then you could be looking at some very serious political consequences of the kind that George Bush suffered in his second term.
But there's also no denying just the dramatic nature of how everything is played out. I mean, just 24 hours ago, I was on air, we were talking about reports of a few explosions. Here we are 24 hours later, and you have the ousted Venezuelan leader bedding down in a Brooklyn cell. So do you see maybe a potential for Donald Trump's approval ratings to experience maybe a second wind? And if so, do you think that would actually be sustainable, though?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, historically there was, I mean, we talked about the public rallying around the flag whenever troops are committed. I mean, that really has attenuated in the past 20, 30 years as our politics have become more polarized. But, it is possible that there will be some immediate effect like that in the wake of a successful short-term military action. The two big constraints are, we really don't know exactly what the Trump administration has in mind when it says it is going to run the country, unless they believe that the successor government in Venezuela is simply going to kind of buckle under their pressure and do what they want and give concessions to American oil companies and cut off relations with Cuba, eventually at the point of a spear. Unless that happens, the alternatives are we don't get what he's promising today, or we have to use force to do it. And I think both of those are difficult political options. And then the larger, overwhelming truth is that we just see month after month from the American people, their primary concern is their cost of living. Just nothing else seems to intrude on that, and I think that will certainly remain true. This military action is not something that's going to change that basic dynamic.
But look, ultimately, he also has to face Congress. Listen to what Democratic Representative Seth Moulton told CNN on Saturday. He sits on the House Armed Services Committee, as you know. He criticized the administration's handling of Venezuela, saying that essentially it lied to lawmakers.
When we had briefings on Venezuela, we asked, are you going to invade the country? We were told no. Do you plan to put troops on the ground in Venezuela? We were told no. Do you intend regime change in Venezuela? We were told no. So in a sense, we have been briefed. We've just been completely lied to.
So I have a few seconds to answer two questions here from you. Does it look like the Trump administration lied to not just Congress and the American public? And what leverage does Congress have to try to get more answers from the White House?
Well, I'm not sure the Republican majority wants more answers. I mean, I think they are going to rally around the president. Democrats certainly feel that they were lied to. You and I were not in those closed briefings. We don't know exactly what was said, but by all indications, they didn't. They kind of pushed away from the argument that they were seeking regime change. And by the way, this is another one of the reasons why the rally around the flag kind of dynamic that characterized earlier, at least the initial stages of military operations in earlier generations, has attenuated, because it is, even in the way the administration deals with the opposition party in Congress, is adversarial on this, and there's kind of less of a buy-in for the whole country. I mean, this is, as on domestic issues, they're not really looking to build any kind of engagement or investment among Democrats. They just kind of view it as a nuisance, and so you get what you get, which is a highly partisan reaction, not only in the Congress but in the country, and that I think will limit the ultimate audience for what they are doing, especially if they have to use any kind of follow-on manifestation of American military force, any kind of sustained engagement. I'd be really surprised if Donald Trump has the stomach for that. I mean, he probably didn't oppose the Iraq War originally, as he claimed in 2016, but he certainly came to see nation building as kind of a fool's errand, both substantively and politically. And so it will be fascinating to see if he really is willing to commit American troops on the ground in some kind of ongoing basis. There's really been no indication that he has the inclination for anything like that.
Let's not forget, we have an election coming up soon. Ron Brownstein, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. Thanks for your time and your analysis.
Thanks for having me.
What's to come while many in the U.S. and abroad are denouncing the Trump administration's military action in Venezuela. Many Venezuelans who were forced to leave that country who are cheering what happened. We'll bring you that coming up.
Entertaining is easy when every room has a view. Enter for your chance to win HGTV Dream Home 2026. Brought to you by Wayfair. Every style, every home.
He sure knows these parts well.
Folks say the planes whisper to him.
Outlaws in 500 feet. Rerouting.
Regular! Innovation changes everything.
Man, he's good.
With one investment, you can access the NASDAQ 100 innovators who are rethinking the world. Before investing carefully, read and consider fund investment objectives, risks, charges, expenses, and more. Prospectus at Invesco.com.
Years of hard work. Decades of dedication. Committed to giving back. You've been there, done that, and you're still here for more. So now that you're 50 or older and at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia and IPD, be proactive with Capvaxive, a vaccine specifically designed for adults to help protect against pneumonia, an invasive disease caused by certain types of pneumococcal bacteria. Capvaxive is the only vaccine that helps protect against the strains that cause 82% of IPD in adults 50 or older, compared with up to 54% by other pneumococcal conjugate vaccines. Don't get Capvaxive if you're allergic to the vaccine or its ingredients. Tell your doctor if you have a weakened immune system. Common side effects include injection site reactions, feeling tired, headache, muscle aches, and fever. Whether you've had another pneumococcal vaccine or not, ask your doctor or pharmacist about Capvaxive.
We're giving away over $12 million.
We gotta get this money.
We came here with the dream of starting a family.
This opportunity could change our lives.
It does not get any bigger than this.
The Wall. Check your local listings.
I'm just trying to figure you out.
It's not gonna be easy. Chevy Chase is exciting and talented. He had massive movie star hits.
And then he went downhill from there.
It was a mistake to leave SNL.
Chevy has a deep heart.
Hi, Beauties. I don't think a lot of people have the happiness I have.
I'm who I am.
And I like who I am.
I'm Chevy Chase, and you're not. Now streaming on the CNN app.
Do you have a box of videotapes, film reels, or photos that are degrading? Legacy Box professionally converts them to DVDs, thumb drive, or the cloud. Legacy Box is simple and safe, with over 1 million satisfied customers. Visit legacybox.com.
When your dog's superhero moment goes sideways. Pumpkin Now, the urgent pay service from Pumpkin Pet Insurance, can pay you for eligible care before you pay the vet. Ask your vet about Pumpkin or visit pumpkin.care to get a free quote.
Oh my god, I won! Guys, I just saw someone win an iPad for under $10.
I got this amazing Japanese knife set for just 75 cents.
I got this KitchenAid stand mixer for only $56.
There's millions of fast auctions and always something to win on DealDash.com. And today, new users get a $50 bonus credit. Go to DealDash.com right now and see how much you'll save.
And shipping is always free.
Want to hear something great?
That's a great quote. Actors on Actors. Now streaming on the CNN app.
Venezuelans in South Florida, they're celebrating news of Nicolas Maduro's capture. These images actually coming from Doral, Florida, home to more Venezuelan immigrants than any other single place in the United States. Many are hoping that the Trump administration's actions will spark the change in Venezuela that they have been waiting decades to see. And those celebrations, they are not just happening in the U.S. Many Venezuelans around the world are happy, excited that Nicolas Maduro has been removed from power. CNN's Rafael Roman brings us some of those pictures.
Chance, joy, and tears at the heart of Madrid.
This is excitement, happiness, and hope.
Singing, dancing, and holding up their flag in South America. Venezuelans around the world have been celebrating President Nicolas Maduro's capture. Crowds gather at Doral in Florida, home to one of the largest Venezuelan communities in the U.S. Closer to home in Cucuta, which straddles the border, this man says, "We are going to be free."
I'm happy. I don't know about the other people. My mom and my dad are happy too.
Nearly 7.9 million Venezuelans have fled Maduro's regime, according to UN figures.
more than 6 million sought refuge in Latin America. Colombia is home to 2.8 million migrants, while Peru has welcomed more than 1.6 million. In Lima, many of them were up all night trying to reach their relatives.
I heard around 2 a.m. My son and my mother called me. They were crying and confused about what was happening, and all we did was to pray so they will be okay.
Hope and joy. After years of being abroad, it is a day they won't forget. Rafael Romo, CNN.
Joining me now from New York City is Yurka Melendez. She's the co-founder of Venezuelans Immigrants Aid, a group here in New York that helps Venezuelan asylum seekers. Yurka, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you, Paulo, for the invitation and for having me.
So, Yurka, is there any sense that Maduro may be gone, but these traces of his regime, that they remain back in Caracas?
Oh yes, I mean what happened today is just we are seeing justice that is happening now with Maduro, but we know there is still the Chavez system still remaining in our country. So we are hoping that for those who are still in the country trying to keep in power have the same future that the justice found in Maduro.
I want to show our viewers around the world some of these remarkable pictures that the White House has released where we see Maduro on U.S. soil in handcuffs. He's flanked by DEA agents. We're seeing him right now, and I'm sure you've had a chance to see some of these images. When you did see them, as somebody who is living essentially in exile in the United States and not able to return home, what went through your mind when you saw Maduro like this?
It's like a roller coaster. It's many emotions at the same time. There is still persecution, there is still political prisoners. In my country, there is still people feeling fears. There is still not the possibility for us to going back to our country, but yet it's a light at the end of the tunnel that gives us the hope. And what I really see behind that picture is the justice that we are, I mean, in need of seeing to start or build again our country. So that was my first reaction, that justice that I feel is coming and is getting closer to us as a Venezuelan people outside our country.
President Trump said on Saturday that the U.S. will, as he put it, will run Venezuela until a safe transition can happen. Given the U.S.'s troubled history of intervention, how much confidence do you have in the U.S.'s ability to get your country back on course? We heard from a former ambassador say that doing that, it would be a complicated task. I think that's an understatement.
Yes, it is a complicated even topic for me to digest because it's too many political matters in between. What I see beyond that is the humanity behind this. It's just human beings, I mean, aiming for freedom. That is what I see right now. Just hoping that the representation for our political people might be, the best fit in order to Venezuelans be the ones who can just decide the future of our country. But now, what I see, even in that scenario, it's just the help that we were seeking and hoping that everything is just getting into place, back into place. Our country is in a mess. We lost our country, and now getting pieces into place, I know it's going to be a really complicated task. And again, for us, it's just the beginning, probably the beginning of the end, that beginning that we saw almost 3 decades back in our history. And I don't feel like creating expectations and guessing the future, but what we see is just a fact, and I'm hoping that is gonna result in a better future for everything. Starting for rebuilding again a country that we lost almost 3 decades.
Yurka, as you and nearly 80 million of your fellow Venezuelans who have left home in the last decade observe closely what will happen next. I'm curious, I wonder if we can close with what your vision is of what you see as the future of your country.
I mean, it's almost really case, as I said before. It's not an easy solution, like a right away. I know this will take a lot, even in our mind, as a civil society, to escape and get rid of our own fears. It's going to be a really complicated task. And as you can tell now, it's too many pieces that we have to put again together. We have to remind us, as a civil society, what is to have again independent institutions, starting from that, and then as a citizens of Venezuela, to gain that confidence that we don't need to rely on waiting for a regime to decide what is going to be next for us, but decide for ourselves about our own future. You see, it's many things that we have to digest again as a civil society, as a citizen of our country, starting for okay, we have again a country, let's build it together. So it's so many tasks, it's quite complicated for me because there are many emotions coming to my mind. But even having the hope that you can go back to your country, even for visiting, as I said to you in a private conversation before, it's just wow, like a light and a human right that we even forget what is that feeling. So, it's digesting all these things again, and we have hope. Absolutely. That is the thing that first came to my mind regarding all the events that happening in such a short time, and that is hope, and of course, the commit as a citizen to be a part of this such a, task that we have in front of us.
Yuka Melendez, thank you so much for continuing to share your story, and we will together watch to see what the next chapter will bring for your country. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you, Polo. Thank you.
And we have much more breaking news coverage ahead following the U.S. capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Coming up, the latest on anti-war protests and growing uncertainty in Venezuela.
Yes, who's back?
Well, damn, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Get all the news you didn't know you needed.
That means some good news is coming.
Have I got news for you? New season premieres January 24th on CNN and next day on CNN.
There's like a crouching figure right there.
It's better, smoother, more powerful. Introducing the X5 series. Whether you're looking for a complete grooming package or an affordable shaver that delivers perfection, the X5 series has it all. Explore the X5 series on skullshaver.com.
I'm Maya, and these are my breasts. From sports bras to minimizer bras, we've had a complicated relationship. And then I found a lump, breast cancer. During treatment, I asked about Kisqali, a pill that can help reduce my risk of cancer returning. Now, I have a new perspective on what matters.
Kisqali, with an aromatase inhibitor, is for adults with stage 2 and 3, HR positive, HER2 negative, early breast cancer with a high risk of recurrence. Kisqali may cause serious skin infections, liver problems, and low white blood cell counts that may result in serious infections. Life-threatening lung problems and abnormal heartbeats can occur. Your doctor should test your heart and blood before and during treatment. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening cough, chest pain, or dizziness. Before taking Kisqali, tell your doctor all your medical conditions, medicines you take, and if you're breastfeeding, pregnant, or planning to be, as it can harm an unborn baby. Common side effects include nausea, headache, and tiredness.
I'm doing more today to help protect my tomorrow because I'm more than just breast cancer.
The Winter Blue sale is now on. Visit sandals.com today. Why choose the Sleep Number Smart Bed?
Can it keep me warm when I'm cold?
Wait, no, I'm always hot.
Sleep Number does that.
Can I make my side softer?
I make my side firmer. Sleep Number does that. You're ideal for a mystic, effortless comfort all night.
Can it help us sleep better and better?
Please.
Sleep Number does that. And now, the more you buy, the more you save on beds, bases, and more. Plus, get free home delivery on most beds with base. Check it out at sleepnumber.com or at a Sleep Number store near you.
This is my mom, and she has the best meat pie recipe, and she has not yet given it to me.
That is because you're not ready.
Totally ready.
You're not ready.
Well, we are ready to discuss senior care.
Living alone is not easy, so I've come to terms with that.
The expert advisors and free resources provided by Place for Mom make it easy to find wonderful senior care options right here in our community.
Well, that's very comforting.
Good. Now we can get back to that meat pie recipe.
Oh, you're not ready for that.
This is a part of American heritage. And if you really love your country, you're gonna have to love moonshine.
Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com. If you or a loved one have mesothelioma, we'll send you a free book to answer questions you may have. Call now and we'll come to you. 800-821-4000.
These are some of the passionate protests on the doorstep of the White House on Saturday. This is Americans voiced their frustration with the prospect of war and bloodshed over the oil in Venezuela. Also in New York, more demonstrators carrying the message, no war on Venezuela. They were on the streets just hours after President Trump announced the capture of Nicolas Maduro and his wife. And then, of course, the impact on people inside of Venezuela. There's long lines for shoppers that are waiting to check out at the supermarket in Caracas. Venezuelans are really coming to grips with a new and uncertain reality with their leader captured by the United States, and President Trump promising to run their country. Some businesses, including pharmacies, grocery stores, and gas stations, they simply decided to just remain closed. I want to thank you so much for joining us the last hour of News. I'm Bola Sandoval. I'll be right back with you at the top of the hour with much more of this breaking news coverage here on CNN.
Aaron Patterson has been charged with multiple counts of murder for suspected mushroom poisoning. This is their opportunity to convince the jury this was a terrible accident. Aaron's darkest secrets were coming out. There's multiple versions of the same story.
Just reached the same cause of fire.
This murder trial made international news. We're all on the edge of our seat.
The defense will call Aaron Patterson Death Count. The mushroom murder is now streaming on the CNN app.
The darkness of bipolar depression made me feel like life was moving on without me. Then I found a chance to let in the light. Discover Caplyta. Unlike some medicines that only treat bipolar 1, Caplyta is proven to deliver significant symptom relief from both bipolar 1 and 2 depression. And in clinical trials, movement disorders and weight gain were not common.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Caplyta is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about new or sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks. Report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High cholesterol and weight gain may occur, as can high blood sugar, which may be fatal. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, and dry mouth. These aren't all the side effects.
Ask your doctor how Caplyta can help you let in the light. Find savings at Caplyta.com.
Running a successful delivery company has taught me something. You're only as good as your tools. We have AT&T Business, and that's why we're the best. Really? Yeah, where? There's nothing here. Just trust the connection.
You guys are early. Yeah, I like that.
Get your signature there.
Yeah. You guys thirsty? I just made some lemonade.
It's really warm in here. Like a good warm. You know, my phone still works down here. It's crazy.
Who said luxury? Can't let loose. So, dive in. Loud. And unforgettable. Here, the water welcomes everyone and says, never
Legacy Box Deal of the Year starts now. Your old tapes and photos won't last, but your memories should. Legacy Box digitizes everything by hand, so your memories are safe, shareable, and ready to enjoy this holiday season. Preserve what matters most with Legacy Box.
Some men, they mask their problems. But a man gets the job done right.
What are you in for?
I ate a toy. Turns out what goes in doesn't always come out.
Why wait for more surprises? Get 90% cash back on eligible vet bills for accidents and illnesses with a Pumpkin Pet Insurance Plan. Visit pumpkin.care.
I'm Ben Wiedemann in Rome, and this is CNN.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Hey everybody, welcome to CNN Newsroom. I'm Polo Sandoval live in New York where it's 2 a.m. and also where ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife are being held in detention. U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency transferred the couple to the U.S. after being captured in a large-scale U.S. military operation. He arrived at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn Saturday night. He's set to face drugs and weapons charges in New York in the coming days. President Trump told reporters that troops could have killed Maduro during the operation.
He was trying to get into a safe place. You know, the safe place is all steel. And he wasn't able to make it to the door because our guys were so fast. They went through the opposition so fast. There was a lot of gunfire. You saw some of it today. But he was trying to get to a safe place, which wasn't safe because we would have had the door blown up in about 47 seconds, they say on average, regardless of how thick the steel was. It was a very thick door. It was a very heavy door, but he was unable to get to that door. He made it to the door. He was unable to close it.
The White House also released these photos showing President Trump and members of his national security team watching the operation as it played out early Saturday. He says that the U.S. will, quote, run the country for now and take control of Venezuela's massive oil reserves. More on that a little later in the broadcast. The president also said that he could put troops on the ground to help secure said oil. Venezuela's Supreme Court ordered Vice President Delcy Rodriguez to assume the duties of acting president in Venezuela after Maduro was captured. She's calling on the U.S. to release Maduro and his wife.
We demand the immediate release of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, the only president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
President Trump said at a news conference that Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke with Rodriguez and added that she said, quote, we're going to do whatever you need. CNN's Evan Perez filed this report from outside the detention center where Maduro is currently being held.
Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia are now in the Metropolitan Detention Center here in Brooklyn, capping an extraordinary 20 hours or so after they were snatched from their bedroom in Caracas. They were transported to a U.S. military ship off the coast of Venezuela, the Iwo Jima, and then to Guantanamo Bay, where they were put on a plane to New York. Now, that began the process while they were under arrest to face 4 sets of charges from the Justice Department. Those include narco-terrorism and cocaine importation conspiracy. A number of other Venezuelan officials are also named in this indictment that was unsealed by the Justice Department earlier on Saturday. Now, this begins an extraordinary process for the U.S. government. They have the former Venezuelan leader here now in Brooklyn, and it'll probably be a few months of court battles over the legitimacy of these charges. Now, earlier today, there were hundreds of people from the Venezuelan community who turned up outside the Metropolitan Detention Center to cheer on the arrest of the former Venezuelan leader. Even late into the evening, there were several dozen that remained outside the facility. Depending on where Maduro is being held, he might actually be able to hear some of those cheers. Now, we expect that Maduro will next appear in public in federal court in Manhattan to face these charges as soon as Monday. Evan Paris, Brooklyn, New York.
As we mentioned, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has now been declared Venezuela's acting president. U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Saturday that she was being sworn in. One Caracas resident told CNN Rodriguez is, quote, a terrifying figure of the government in charge of the most oppressive tactics used against Venezuela's citizens. Here's what President Trump had to say about the U.S.'s role in Venezuela's transition to power.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious, because that's what we're all about.
CNN's Julia Benbrook has more from Washington now.
There are still a lot of questions here, but I want to take a step back and look at what we have heard from the White House directly. Following reports of explosions in Venezuela, President Donald Trump took to social media, his Truth Social platform, to confirm the United States was behind this large-scale attack against Venezuela and its leader, Nicolas Maduro. He also, at that time, made the stunning reveal that Maduro and his wife had been captured and removed from the country. Trump can be seen in photos released by the White House watching this complex operation take place. He monitored this from his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. That's where he's been spending the holiday. That's also where he spoke with reporters about this. He praised the operation, saying that it was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. Now, he also said that the United States would, quote, run the country until a judicious transition can happen. Trump has not ruled out boots on the ground, saying that he is not afraid of it if he believes that it's necessary. During that press conference, he was pressed on if he had spoken with Venezuela's opposition leader and the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Maria Corina Machado. He was also pressed in a follow-up question about her potential ability to lead. I want you to listen to some of that back and forth.
Yes.
Aware of the location of opposition leader Machado, and have you been in contact with her?
No, we haven't. Oh, I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within, or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect to be the leader.
Now, Trump has said that the United States is working with Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, but she has demanded Maduro's immediate release and has insisted he is the country's legitimate leader. Julia Benbrook, CNN, Washington.
Let's go now to CNN National Security Analyst Juliet Kayyem. Juliet, thank you so much for taking some time to join us after what's been just an incredible 24 hours. I know you've been following closely.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, it's our pleasure. So the Trump administration seems to frame this detention of a head of state on foreign soil as a law enforcement operation targeting an indicted individual. In your opinion, do you think that gave the administration more room to operate? Or do you think that the operation may have been on shaky legal ground?
So I think that we need to, at least now, 20 hours later, sort of separate the precision of the capture, which I think was precise, was successful, with what we're now seeing, which is, I think, the vagaries of the justification or any plans on day 2. We've spent, as you're reporting, and the lead up of our reporters just show, a lot of time trying to assess what was the purpose of this capture, because the president went from everything from leadership change to regime change to oil to this law enforcement effort that you discuss. On the legal front, of course, there is an indictment against Maduro. The indictment does not discuss the things that President Trump seems to be focused on, which is, of course, fentanyl. But most legal analysts in international law unanimous in saying that this is not justified under international law, that the mere disagreement with a foreign leader does not justify this kind of arrest and, of course, capture, of which the Venezuelans are calling essentially an abduction or hostage taking.
And in listening to President Trump on Saturday afternoon, Julia, it didn't seem that there was a real plan in place. I thought that there was really some substance that was missing there. So considering that, what questions would you pose to the Trump administration about just how it went about in detaining Maduro and what it sees as Venezuela's future?
Yeah, I think that's just an important distinction. We tend to get focused, at least in the news, on the sort of power and shock and awe of the military action. You can't applaud that and say that was a good capture, but then question what now. I think the president was exceptionally confusing. I'll just be honest with you. If you're a Venezuelan, let alone a foreign country, let alone Americans, it was completely unclear what was the imminent threat and what is the plan on Sunday. Is it just leadership change, which seems to be the case right now? You have the basic contours of the same leadership still in place. Is it about regime change? Well, Trump hinted at that when he said that the United States would be in control of Venezuela, something that didn't make a lot of sense given that the Defense Department had said that they basically exited. Or is it about something different? Democracy, possibly oil, definitely. The president said that. That hodgepodge of explanations is confusing. It suggests there was no imminent reason for doing this. But most importantly, it shows that the president never really made the case to the American public, let alone the international community. I think that's probably why tonight he's already distracted, if you followed his feed, from the efforts in Venezuela and back to domestic politics and antagonizing his political opponents rather than a focus on what happens on Sunday.
Yeah, it didn't make the case to not just the public, but to Congress as well, as we continue to see that chorus of critics, especially among Democrats, that are calling on the administration to really explain not just what led up to the operation, but to your earlier point, what its plan is long term. So let's just finally just talk broader about what we can expect in the region. I mean, what kind of instability could we maybe see in Venezuela and beyond?
I put it into 4 different buckets. I think there's the short term, which is going to be sort of the travel issues that you're seeing, travel restrictions for Americans and others. That's not new. It's just something that Americans should be aware of. I think the second is just sort of continuity of operations. The question of who is in charge also goes to who is in charge of ensuring that Venezuelans' lives are not disrupted by this, or continuity of operations continuing. I think I worry less a little bit about geopolitical stability at this stage because we simply don't know what's going to happen. But if things go bad in Venezuela, you could get migration and other pressures on surrounding countries, which would then destabilize not only South America, but of course Central America and then Mexico and the United States. I finally think that we need to really look at supply chain issues as regards oil and other commodities that are transported. I work a lot in the business community. I certainly focus on that. So as I'm looking at the sort of politics of what's happening in Venezuela, or what promises or confusion is emanating out of the White House right now, you're also looking at a geopolitical structure that is as confused, is quite confused, and looking at the risk variables that might impact them in the days and weeks to come.
Julia Kayyem, as always, we are grateful for your perspective, and especially grateful that you could stay up late for us today. Thank you. And we do have more on the U.S. capture of Venezuela's president after break. Coming up, we examine the political reigns of Nicolas Maduro. Also, U.S. President Donald Trump stating plainly he thinks the U.S. should control Venezuela's oil. And he says that's exactly what will happen now. We'll explore that when we return.
I brought in Ensure Max Protein with 30 grams of protein. Those who tried me felt more energy in just 2 weeks. Here, I'll take that.
Ensure Max Protein. 30 grams protein, 1 gram sugar, and a protein blend to feed
muscles up to 7 hours.
Hi, I'm Caitlin, and this is my story. Aliformis osteogenesis imperfecta, or brittle bone disease. I have broken my bones almost 200 times, and I have had 11 surgeries. But I didn't let that stop me. I love to bike ride, climb, race, and I'm learning how to stand and walk. But I can only do all of this because of generous people like you and Shriners Hospitals for Children.
And for the past 100 years, Shriners Children's has become family to millions of kids. But it's only possible because of people like you.
Shriners Hospitals for Children is only able to provide this world-class, life-changing medical care because of the generous gifts of people just like you.
Because of you, I can ride my bike. I can play basketball. Because of people like you, I can play soccer. I can smile.
Will you send your love to the rescue today?
When you go online to loveshriners.org, you'll help make all of this possible for kids like me. Like me. Like me. When you say yes to giving just $19 a month and 63 cents a day, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a reminder of all the kids you're helping every day.
Your gift, no matter how small, can help a child today.
This is your moment to make a difference.
When you pick up your phone, you know you have it right there. And call to kids. You're helping kids like me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Please call or go online now. If operators are busy, please call again or give right away at loveshriners.org.
Your gift makes a difference. Thank you for giving.
I like things personalized, like my coffee. So when my doctor prescribed Vyvgart Hytrulo self-injection for my generalized myasthenia gravis, we personalized my treatment goals. Vyvgart Hytrulo can improve daily abilities and reduce muscle weakness.
It's my treatment, my way.
Vyvgart Hytrulo for weekend away ski.
It's travel ready and can go where I go.
Self-injection fits my plans. Do not use Vyvgart Hytrulo if you're allergic to its ingredients. It may increase infection risk and cause serious allergic or infusion or injection-related reactions. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, fever, recent or planned vaccinations, allergy history, or kidney problems. Most common side effects include respiratory and urinary tract infections, headache, and injection site reactions.
My Vyvgart Hytrulo self-injection.
Reducing my symptoms. That's treatment? My way. Ask your neurologist about Vyvgart Hytrulo.
And as a successor to Venezuela's Hugo Chavez, Nicolas Maduro tightened his grip on the country for more than a decade, surviving international sanctions, political unrest, and multiple challenges to his rule. Well, that is until now. See some of this footage that was released by the White House of what the White House is describing or calling Maduro's perp walk at the DEA headquarters in New York. Maduro and his wife sit in U.S. custody following their capture and extradition on Saturday. CNN's Rafael Romo takes a closer look at the Venezuelan president's political reign.
Two men have governed Venezuela in the last 25 years. Hugo Chavez, who described his style of governing as 21st century socialism and died in 2013, handpicked Nicolas Maduro as his successor, who narrowly won an election that year. During the nearly 13 years that Nicolas Maduro had been in power, Venezuela lost 72% of its economy. An estimated 8 million Venezuelans have voted with their feet by migrating to other countries, including the United States. Maduro's politics have been a mix of anti-imperialist and anti-U.S. narrative. As Venezuela's leader and the country's power broker, he's been the face of Chavismo, a left-wing populism held over from the Chavez era. Other figures are part of this confederation of power, including Diosdado Cabello, the interior minister, and Vladimir Padrino, the defense minister. Will they and others be able to keep alive the system which enriched a lucky few at the expense of the populace? There's almost no independent media left, and those in power ignore the press or plainly refuse to answer any questions from journalists, as we found out in 2016 when we tried for months to interview Delcy Rodriguez, who as vice president now, is constitutionally entitled to be sworn in as president in Maduro's absence.
Canciller, ¿qué dice de las alegaciones de que se venden?
Rodriguez finally reappeared Saturday afternoon, asserting that Nicolás Maduro is, quote, the only president of Venezuela, surrounded by her brother, Jorge Rodriguez, the president of the Venezuelan National Assembly, and Diosdado Cabello, the interior minister, and several military leaders. The vice president said that Venezuela, quote, will never be a colony again. The last time Venezuela had a crisis of this magnitude was an uprising in 2019. We now know that the U.S. attack targeted at least 2 airports and a port, as well as Fort Tuna, a major Venezuelan military installation. Rafael Romo, CNN, Atlanta.
And joining me now to unpack Maduro's political standing is Will Freeman. He's fellow for Latin American Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations. Well, it's great to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me.
So what are Maduro loyalists in Venezuela's government doing right now to respond to their leader's capture? I mean, do you see the detained Venezuelan leader's influence still playing a role in Caracas?
You know, I think a number of Maduro regime insiders, they felt that they need to pay lip service to defending him. You know, they've said this is unacceptable. They've said that they'll resist U.S. aggression. But what do we see them doing in practice? I mean, today you had Delcy Rodriguez, his vice president, quickly sworn in as the new interim president. And you had a press conference where she was flanked by all the top members of the Maduro regime hierarchy. You had the defense minister, head of the military, visit her even before that. So to me, what it looked like was basically all the remaining players banding together and, I think communicating without exactly explicitly saying it. We either survive together or we sink alone. And pretty willing and able to move on without Maduro. I mean, that's how I'm reading things. Obviously, a lot's still uncertain, but I see here an authoritarian regime which is reconfiguring itself, which wants to survive, which probably wants to cut deals with the Trump administration, and wants to avoid, above everything, being pushed by the Trump administration towards some kind of negotiated democratic transition.
Fascinating. How do you see those potential conversations playing out between the remaining members of the regime and the White House?
Well, a lot is going to depend on dynamics within the White House itself. So I think you have Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, obviously deeply personally committed to a transition here. I think that's why he's been pursuing this for the better part of his career. He very much sees Venezuela linked to Cuba and believes that if there's a transition in Venezuela, you'll also see one in Cuba, a longtime goal of his. So I think that for him, he'll push hard for this. What does President Trump want? That's more of a mystery. Today at the press conference he held, he said that there would be elections quickly, but he didn't specify an exact timeline. And he also seemed pretty open to working with Delcy Rodriguez, that vice president who's just now become the interim president in Venezuela and who's part of the Maduro regime structure. In fact, Trump put much more emphasis on oil, on getting bigger stakes for U.S. companies in the country. Could he do that with a reconfigured Maduro regime minus Maduro? I think he could, and Trump may realize that. And, whether or not he may try seriously to get a transition, he may not. If it gets difficult, if the process gets stuck, he may simply, be pragmatic here, practice some realpolitik and work with the people in place. I mean, I could really see that happening. In which case, you'd have to really do a tough benefit cost analysis here where you've had, over 100 people killed in the region. You've had U.S. personnel put at risk, a lot of U.S. taxpayer money spent. And in the end, what do you end up with? Potentially just a slightly different looking authoritarian regime doing it for more business deals with the U.S. You'd have to really ask yourself, is that worth it?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned acting President Delcy Rodriguez. President Trump said that his Secretary of State, that he spoke to her, that she reportedly told Marco Rubio, we're going to do whatever you need. But then also we heard from her and her description saying that the detention of a president, the extraction of a president, that it was a violation of international law, and even demanded that he be returned immediately. Can you just, with your expertise, help us understand these two different narratives?
Well, I think let's look at how this operation occurred, right? You had dozens of U.S. aircraft flying at low altitudes into Caracas, not receiving anti-aircraft fire, really to speak of, doing this tactical masterstroke. To me, there's a chance that this was just, you could chalk this up to the professionalism of the U.S. military. What I really think it points to is that there was someone on the inside, possibly many people on the inside, colluding or cooperating with the U.S. government to hand over Maduro, right? And so I think right now everyone remaining in Venezuela doesn't want to be seen as that person, right? To the other regime insiders, they want to be seen as the loyalist who would have gone down, shooting would have gone down with the ship. And so, I think everyone is going to be copying that language of Delcy Rodriguez, and that's what we've seen so far. They're all going to be saying, no, I would have stood with Maduro to the end, but clearly, I think pretty clearly, someone sold him out. So we're going to keep seeing that doublespeak. I think even as likely the Delcy Rodriguez government starts to do deals with the Trump administration, we're going to still see them, making appeals to sovereignty, to resisting the U.S., but that's not going to be, what's more important is that we watch what they do in practice.
Yeah, it's likely that there is a CIA presence within Venezuela, as we learned when Trump allowed them, or at least gave them the green light to launch any covert options. I have a few seconds with you. What do you believe Maria Corina Machado, the opposition leader's next move may be? Again, just a few seconds with you.
Unfortunately, she looks like the biggest loser today, right? So President Trump, more or less, just discarding her as a real possibility for leading the country. Now, look, I think that there is some rationale behind that. Maria Corina Machado said 20% of the armed forces in Venezuela have to go. That's very ambitious for getting a transition. That rarely happens in countries moving towards democracy. So what could she do? I think she could try to keep the opposition united. She can contribute to this pressure for the Trump administration not to cut a dirty deal with a reconfigured dictatorship in Venezuela, but actually to push for democracy. And she can continue being a voice of moral clarity for that opposition, for the Venezuelan people. So, I think she likely will continue playing that role. The question is, will it be enough to sway President Trump?
Yeah, that she lacks support, an inaccurate claim from the commander-in-chief during that press conference. Will Freeman, I really appreciate your time and your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you.
How many Democratic lawmakers are expressing their frustration over not being notified before this operation to capture Nicolas Maduro? The Secretary of State's response is coming your way.
The Mushroom Murders, now streaming on the CNN app. Why choose the Sleep Number Smart Bed?
Can it keep me warm when I'm cold?
Wait, no, I'm always hot.
Sleep Number does that.
Can I make my side softer?
I like my side firmer. Sleep Number does that. You're ideal for a misty, effortless comfort all night.
Can it help us sleep better and better?
Please.
Sleep Number does that. And now, the more you buy, the more you save on beds, bases, and more. Plus, get free home delivery on most beds with base. Check it out at sleepnumber.com or at a Sleep Number store near you.
Approved for the treatment of relapsing forms of multiple sclerosis in adults. Ponvory lowers the number of white blood cells, lymphocytes, in your blood. Usually, this will return to normal within 1 to 2 weeks of stopping treatment. Ponvory can increase your risk of serious infections that can be life-threatening and may cause death. Ponvory can cause your heart rate to slow down, especially after you take your first dose. Do not take Ponvory if in the last 6 months you had a heart attack, unstable angina, stroke, or other severe heart conditions, including certain types of abnormal heart rhythm. The most common side effects of Ponvory include upper respiratory tract infections, elevated liver enzymes, and high blood pressure. Starting treatment with Ponvory will begin with the starter pack. Ask your doctor about Ponvory or visit ponvory.com to learn more. By Vanda Pharmaceuticals.
I brought in Ensure Max Protein with 30 grams of protein. Those who tried me felt more energy in just 2 weeks. Here, I'll take that.
Ensure Max Protein. 30 grams protein, 1 gram sugar, and a protein blend to feed muscles up to 7 hours.
Oh my god, I won! Guys, I just saw someone win an iPad for under $10.
I got this amazing Japanese knife set for just 75 cents.
I got this KitchenAid stand mixer for only $56.
There's millions of fast auctions and always something to win on DealDash.com. And today, new users get a $50 bonus credit. Go to DealDash.com right now and see how much you'll save.
And shipping is always free.
Home Aglow just cleaned my entire house for $19. Seriously, $19. They showed up right on time.
did my dishes, put my laundry, they even cleaned my windows. You just pick a date, pick a cleaner, and enjoy a spotless house for $19. I love using HomeAglow, and I think you will too.
Want to hear something?
Actors on Actors, now streaming on the CNN app.
The Trump administration has posted video of what it calls Nicolas Maduro's perp walk. You see him here. You see the ousted Venezuelan president being escorted, his hands in handcuffs, inside the Drug Enforcement Administration headquarters in New York City. Maduro was processed and fingerprinted there. He's now set to face drugs and weapon charges in Manhattan in federal court. That possibly could happen next week. U.S. extraction teams, they captured Maduro and his wife in a major military operation overnight Saturday. President Donald Trump says that the U.S. will now run Venezuela.
Do you envision the U.S. military having a presence in Venezuela as the U.S. runs that?
Well, no, we're going to have a presence in Venezuela as it pertains to oil, because we have to have, we're sending our expertise in. So you may need something, not very much. But no, we're going to be taking out a tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground. And that wealth is going to the people of Venezuela and people from outside of Venezuela that used to be in Venezuela. And it goes also to the United States of America in the form of reimbursement for the damages caused us by that country.
And hours after the U.S. military deposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, Donald Trump was laying out his plan for that country's vast oil reserves. The president says that his administration will partner with U.S. energy companies to take control of Venezuela's oil infrastructure. It's estimated that Venezuela is sitting on a fifth of the world's reserve of crude oil, and unlocking it could massively benefit U.S. industries. Donald Trump also claims the U.S. is owed some of its wealth. For more on Venezuela's vast oil reserves, I'm joined now by energy expert Cornelia Meyer, the CEO of Meyer Resources. She's also chairman and chief economist at LBV Asset Management. It's good to see you.
Good morning, Paulo.
Good morning to you in Switzerland. So the reserves are vast in Venezuela, but just how much of global oil production is Venezuela responsible for?
Well, at this point, very little. It is about 934,000 barrels a day, which is less than 1% of global production. Venezuela used to produce in the heyday more than 3 million barrels a day, so that production came off due to mismanagement under Chavez and Maduro by about 70%. So very little. So whatever happens will not immediately have a big impact on oil prices. You saw they were actually falling. And mind you, it's great if U.S. companies are going in, but this is not a light switch. Restarting, reigniting the upstream production does take time. Few 100,000 barrels maybe over the first 6 months or so. So it's not as easy as it looks. One more thing, Chevron is operating currently in Venezuela, is exempt from sanctions because under a production sharing agreement, they're not paying the regime dollars, they're paying them in barrels.
And so you mentioned the complicated nature that is more than just a flip of a switch. But what about companies like Chevron? I mean, would they go in if there are no guarantees for their assets, or security guarantees for their assets? I mean, would they go in a volatile area?
Well, Chevron is in. So for Chevron, they know how to handle it. But it's a very good question, because what you see with U.S. companies, they tend to be a little bit more jittery in going in U.S. and European companies when there is too much political instability, too much volatility. We saw that, for instance, in Iraq. It was Chinese companies, Russian companies that initially went in. It was not U.S. companies and Western companies. They then followed as the situation got better. And that brings me to the next point. This is not just about oil. It's also about rare earths and Chinese control of mining operations in Venezuela, which then makes what happened compatible with the new U.S. security strategy.
Cornelia, there are drivers in the U.S. and around the world that are watching. I'll ask a question that's probably heavy on their minds. How could this jolt to Venezuela's government impact oil markets and specifically gas prices?
Well, I think it will. It is at this point, as I said, not impacting oil markets because it's localized. It's less than 1% of global production, so it doesn't really in an oil market that is sort of oversupplied. By some people, OPEC says just well supplied. Other people like the IEA say oversupplied to the tune of 2 million barrels a day. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. But what we have to look at is again the stability, because this is Latin America has actually become very important for incremental new oil production. When we look at the new oil production, non-OPEC oil production coming on stream comes from the US, it comes from Brazil, it comes from Guyana, and it comes from Argentina.
Finally, Cornelia, can you help me fact-check President Trump's claim that, and you may have just heard it right now, that the U.S. has owned some of Venezuelans' oil wealth? I mean, what is true about that?
Well, there was a nationalization spree in the 1970s, and then again, when Hugo Chavez came in, he sort of nationalized some more. So if you look at that as appropriating what was owned by the U.S., you can go there, but then you can also say, what were the precise ownership agreements? Were they production sharing agreements? Were they concessions? What was it? But certainly there has been nationalization twice in Venezuela.
Really. Now, in terms of what you'll be watching closely, especially as we wait to see what the next chapter for Venezuela will be, I mean, what do you think may be an outcome, particularly for the people of Venezuela? I mean, there was one Venezuelan migrant who fled that country and said that their oil was, in her words, it was stolen 25 years ago. So what do you think may be the best outcome for the people who stayed behind?
Well, the best outcome, the most important outcome is stability. We've seen in other places when foreign countries sort of go and take over that